It's funny when you say abroad changed me when you get back to BC, because you don't want to be one of those people, but you end up being one of those people just because it really does change you and affect how you see the world. For me, I went to Madrid with, 3 years of high school Spanish, hadn't spoken Spanish since a weird, awkward, phone call at work one time. And I, was a little underprepared. And it's funny how day-to-day tasks became so different for me. Ordering coffee every day was different than, ordering it at BC. Or how getting a haircut, which, was surprisingly one of the hardest things I have to do in Madrid, was for me, and how challenging it was. On the haircut story, it's one of those things where you don't actually always remember all the verbs you need to know, or, the nouns. And then you end up doing small talk with your hairdresser, and you're just like, oh my god, please, I hope I'm not sounding stupid, as you're like rambling off in Spanish and sometimes in English. But it's one of those things that really does make you be more independent and really go outside your comfort zone, which I think is often invaluable in life, and really challenge your perspective on things and gives you a new perspective on people who don't speak English in their first language. And when you interact with them, it gives you more of a sense of compassion and like understanding of like what they must be going through. And then for the second question, if you're still on this fence about going abroad, I would say that you should just go abroad. I know it's a little weird and harsh, but it's one of those experiences that you can never have again in life. It's very rare that you'll have a chance to study in a city where you don't really need to work, and that you really are just there to learn and be embraced in the culture. I know financial reasons are one of those like things that it's really hard to justify sometimes going abroad. If you get a lot of BC financial aid, which I do, it just goes to, it's very easy for your financial aid to, work with your abroad program, especially if it's BC program. And there's this funding as well available. I do think it's one of those things that it usually have to be different, because you're not going to be able to work. So if you have an on-campus job, you can't do that for the semester, and it is a little stressful. But it's one of those things that it's really, you just don't get another chance to do it. Okay. And lastly, the myths about studying abroad. I would say that all of your classes are going to be a piece of cake. That definitely does happen to some people, but for my experience, some of my classes were definitely, easier in respect of like no real homework every week, or the homework took 10 minutes every week. And then, other classes like my international law class, I had an essay every week and group work every week. And it's one of those things that it really does depend on your classes, and you shouldn't only take classes because you've heard they were easy. You should take classes that are generally interesting to you and, will give you a new perspective. My international law class, I don't think I would ever have that same class structure or perspective given in the US, especially since in Spain they have such a more higher regard for international law versus, some people in the States. It was often a very interesting moment in class when the counterexample to something would be, but the US does this, but the US does this, and everyone would turn to, the 3 or 4 kids in this 60-person lecture hall who were, abroad kids, and really were from the US, and we're just like, awkward. But it's one of those things that you just learn to deal with. Overall, I think abroad was one of those things that I would recommend anyone who has a chance and an ability to go, because it's just one of those experiences you really are never going to get again in your life. Thank you.